My name is Bonnie Moss. I am the Executive Director of the SMB ISAO, and I am here today to share with you what an ISAO is and how it can help your company. Has anyone heard the term ISAO before? No? Has anyone heard CISA or a CISA Act? Okay, so not that you're going to be tested on this, but just to give you a little background. The ISAO stands for Information Sharing and Analysis Organization, or you might also hear an ISAC, which is an Information Sharing Analysis Center. And the ISACs are focused on critical infrastructure, bigger industries, so like maritime, transportation, finances, and then ISAOs are smaller industry. And what these information sharing organizations do is they're like a bridge to build that gap, that trust gap between private entity and the U.S. government. So as a small business owner, you probably are not that motivated to share any kind of a cyber-related event with the government, right? Because you've got compliance issues, you've got litigation issues, public relations issues, you're constantly at risk, and the government recognized that. So in 2015, Obama signed CISA, which is the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act, and he's stating that by creating these ISAOs or these hubs, people can share their information with the United States government and be completely protected from litigation. So it was a huge incentive for people to join an ISAO. The only stipulation is you have to share. And then so ISAOs were created. ISACs have been around for a long time, again, critical infrastructure. ISAOs have just kind of started, growing legs about 2 years ago. We've been in business for about 2 years, and we started from a private cybersecurity company, and we have a lot of partners in the industry. But basically, think of it as you've got this act, and this act gives you legal protections if you belong to an ISAO and if you share the information. The information to be shared is completely voluntary. No one's forcing you to do it, and it's very simple to do. If you share, you get those protections invoked. So that's kind of the summary of it. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about what that means. Okay, so again, why we do it is CISA was created because they realized that we needed to become a stronger nation as a whole against cybersecurity threats and overall awareness. We can't do that without the intel, and we need the intel from private industry. Hackers aren't attacking the government, they're attacking especially SMBs because they're much more vulnerable and they don't really have the infrastructure to protect themselves. Private industry isn't going to share because they don't want the litigation and they don't want the headache. So this is why this whole thing was created. I'll go into that later. Okay. So this is a big one, screen for PII. As an ISAO, we do it two ways. We take our members' information when they share a cyber event, and we scrub all the PII, even if they do it anonymously, and even if they purposely leave off their company name, their personal name, all their personal information, we're still going to scrub it anyway, manually by our cybersecurity analysts, and then it goes into an enclave where it's scrubbed again automatically before it goes over to DHS. So that way the members are completely protected. They still have the litigation protections, they have everything, all the privileges and provisions invoked under CISA without having to share who they are. And obviously this is the big takeaway with CISA. Okay, so going into a little bit more about the provisions, I talked a little bit about the PII scrubbing. This goes directly from us for our ISAO, for example. Our members would submit the cyber event information to us, and then from there it goes directly to DHS. They have their own dedicated IAS server. And when let me just stop for a second and explain what I mean by event, because there are so many different terms that are used loosely, whether you're talking about a cyber hack or a breach or an an alert or just a red flag, you just get a scary email, you don't know what to call it. We lump all of those into what we call a cyber event, and they have cyber threat vectors or indicators. Those are all defined on our ISAO portal for our members. But basically, it's anything that they think this could be bad. Even if it's something small, just sharing that information with us protects them. And I think you guys get copies of these slides. So if not, if you have any questions, you don't have to wait till the end, just stop me. Okay, so a lot of these protections too, like antitrust, your competitors in an open market, all of your trade secrets, your intellectual property, patents, all of that stuff is protected. Because again, the only thing that they want, the only thing that that DHS wants is that actual hack, like that IP address, where it's coming from, where it originated. Is it internal? Is it external? That's all they're interested in. And then some more of these protections, even FOIA you're protected against, so somebody can't put that against you. And then all of this is supposed to sunset. CISA is supposed to sunset in 2023, so that's why these ISAOs are jumping up so quickly right now. A little bit more about some of the provisions. Again, it's completely voluntary. If you join an ISAO, and I'll share with you a little bit later about the benefits too, aside from the protections, but if you join an ISAO and you choose not to share, that's okay. There's nothing requiring you to share. But if, let's say, for example, you run a company and you have a lot of client data, you got a threat and you did not share that, and then down the road you got another one and your client data was compromised, you can't be protected against that first one that you didn't share, only for what you shared, if that makes sense. So you share, you're protected, bottom line. I talked about the sunset, and again, the reason that we're doing this is so that we as a nation become stronger with our cybersecurity posture. Okay, so back to joining an ISAO. What is an ISAO? Again, we're that bridge, we're that repository where you can share the information with us, and then we take it and let me pause here. You do not have to join an ISAO to share, and you can still get those legal protections by sharing on your own. But the whole point of it is by joining an ISAO, ISAOs will do all the heavy lifting for you. Because a lot of SMB owners, they're not gonna know how to connect to a DHS IAS server, how to upload the information, how to capture that confirmation code that you shared so that, God forbid, you get taken to court and you can say, got it right here, I shared. A lot of SMB owners don't have the time or inclination to do that, so that's why these ISAOs are in place. Again, completely voluntary. Must be reviewed and scrubbed. So I was telling you about our two ways that our ISAO scrubs manually and automatically, and then DHS also scrubs. So, you know, we do it twice, DHS does it once, but it's almost overkill on the scrubbing, but they're just trying to prove that no, they do not want your personal information. They just want that hack. They just want the cyber event. They want to keep you protected. And I get this question a lot is, well, if I don't share who I am, how do I prove that I was the one that shared the information, that I have to get taken to court and say, no, you can't sue me because I did this? The way our ISAO does it is if you're a member, each member is assigned a unique identifier code, and that gets added to the event notification form. So they can add their name if they want it, or they can click anonymous, but that unique identifier code is only kept in our enclave. Nobody else sees that. So if Johnny has to go to court and he says, well, I don't have proof, I have proof that this is tied to this number. So he doesn't even have to say his name or business. He doesn't have to share any of that. He just has that code. So just to let you know, yes, you are always protected. And this is the big takeaway. Again, like I was saying earlier, you know, you have two events and you only share the latter. Well, you're only protected for that one you shared. If you didn't share the former, you're not protected under that. Completely voluntary, but you don't get those protections unless you share. Okay, so other benefits of joining an ISAO, it's a good PR tool because you're basically demonstrating, you care about about cybersecurity, you care about your client data, you care about your stakeholders. You're taking this as a very serious thing. So it's a great PR tool, and these are all of the protections that you get. Okay, so I already talked about most of these, but if you know that you can save your business, save your reputation, some of these SMB owners, they've poured their years into building their business, and overnight it's taken away because of one hack. Well, to know that you can save this by joining an ISAO, or not joining an ISAO, but just basically by sharing your information, that's a huge incentive. A lot of ISAOs will give their members cybersecurity expertise. We do this. We give education, we give resources, we give free training, webinars. A lot of times we'll get calls for, it's always after the hack, right? That's when everybody freaks out. And so we have a hotline and people will call, and our job as an ISAO is the information sharing portion. So they'll say, well, I need to talk to an expert. Well, we have partners. We have cybersecurity partners, we have IT partners, we have, if you need a vulnerability scan, call these people. If you need a penetration test, call these people. We've vetted them, we've worked with them for years. So these are a lot of resources that if you are to shop around for an ISAO, look for some of this stuff. Again, joining an ISAO takes the heavy lifting off you having to do it. And then you can get analysis of cyber threats. I know for our members, because our ISAO is geared for the SMB demographic, they really don't, they just don't have the time or the inclination to necessarily deep dive into the analytics of cyber events, but we still share it with them. So that information is available to them. Again, what to look for in an ISAO. So for our SMB ISAO, we have the experience of dealing with SMBs. We understand their very unique requirements, and they're very vulnerable. So we, for example, when I talk about the cyber threats and the cyber analytics, we put it in layman's terms that an SMB would understand. We try to make it non-technical as possible. And you want to make sure that that they've vetted their employees, they've vetted their cybersecurity analysts, they have the experience, they know how to work with the government. Because here's the thing, anybody can start an ISAO. You have fly-by-night ISAOs all the time. It's just like a charity. Somebody wakes up at 3 in the morning, hey, let's start a charity. Anybody can do that. The Standards Organization, which is the umbrella that oversees ISAOs and ISACs, they are working very diligently on creating a accreditation program and a certification program for ISAOs. But until then, you've got a lot of people that will happily take your money. So this is kind of why I'm sharing with you what to look for in an ISAO. Some of the things that we do in our ISAO, and I'm sharing with you because this would be great for you to do with your company. Especially, some of you, if you have a smaller company, you might not have an advisory council. That's understandable. Obviously, you're going to check out your employees before you hire them. But right here, I train on this alone so much, and it just astounds me that people will have a disaster recovery plan for acts of God, but nothing for a cybersecurity event. And the likelihood of your business getting torn down by a fire or a tornado are much less than getting destroyed by a cybersecurity event, right? So nobody has, a lot of people don't make these, and they're so important because you don't want to open up the news first thing in the morning and you realize that your company was hacked and you don't have sound bites ready for the media, you don't know what to say to your stakeholders, you have nothing for your customers, your phone's ringing off the hook, you're in panic mode, you can't think clearly, you don't know logistically what you should be doing and all the tactical steps. Should I do an air gap or should I not do an air gap? Do I need to capture the bad guy? All of these things would be laid out for you in a playbook so that if this happens and you're in panic mode, you just pull that off the shelf and you say, oh, okay, here's my phone tree. Here's who's authorized for what access. Here's what I say to the media. Here's what I say to my clients. And having that in place will really save your bacon. I can't emphasize it. A lot of people do this for, like I said, for acts of God, but they don't do it for cybersecurity. So make sure, I can't hound it enough, make sure you get one of these in place. And afterwards, if you're interested, I can help you. My background actually is not tech. I have my background is public relations with an emphasis in crisis communications. So that's kind of my bread and butter. And then a lot of these policies, again, great for your companies to have. Acceptable use, passwords. Passwords suck, I get it, they do. But it's like the easiest way for hackers to get in, and it's just the simplest way for us to protect ourselves. So if on your policy for your company you say, no, this is important to me as a business owner, so I'm making it's going to be important to you. You will change your password every 6 months. You will not use public Wi-Fi. You will not accept bogus thumb drives, whatever you want your policy, but it demonstrates to your employees that you're taking this seriously, and they need to too. And obviously it depends on how your personal organization and culture is set up that you would do that. And I've seen some policies where if they don't adhere to it, they're out, they're fired. You know, however you want to establish it, but just if it's important to you, it's going to be important to them. So these are some of the things that our ISAO uses. Our analysts back in the SOC. That was another thing when shopping for an ISAO. Ask if they have a SOC or a CSOC, a Cybersecurity Operations Center. Like, how are they? Or is this, you know, just a garage operation? So our cybersecurity analysts in our SOC, they use some of the government tools like FBI, and then the HISN network on DHS. We also use TrueStar. TrueStar is a threat intelligence platform. A lot of the private tips are very costly. That's why the government has free sources too. We use both. And then we have research specialists, and they use open source intelligence just like you guys could too. So if you didn't want to join an ISAO, but you still wanted to invoke some of these CISA protections and you wanted to share, these are some great sites that you could go to get the latest cyber trends and cyber hacks and things like that. That's all open source. The way that we do our sharing to our members and alert them, every Friday they get a weekly threat alert. Every month they get a monthly newsletter, and it has legal advice, it has member stories, it has a deeper dive into threat alerts. And then of course if there's something big like say the WannaCry hack, that's an immediate email. They also have access to it on the member portal. And then we have, you know, white papers, blogs, things like that. We have a toll-free hotline people can call. But basically the point is we're trying to really educate our members on cybersecurity and how to boost their own cybersecurity hygiene and make their organizations stronger and better. Not all ISAOs do this, so if you're shopping for one, just ask. You know, what are the benefits? What do I get out of my membership? So this is how it works. Not all ISAOs do this. They all have different business models. This is how we do it. If you're a member and you see an email come across and you know it's bogus or any kind of a threat, you go to the portal and the member portal, and there is a very simple form, event notification form, that is basically modeled right after US CERT, their form. When we first started it, I timed our cybersecurity analysts. It took them 1 minute and 30 seconds to fill out. The second time they filled it out, they'd already seen the form, so they knew what to expect, and their unique identifier code was already put in there, and it took them 46 seconds. So 46 seconds, less than a minute, is what I tell our members to share that information. And so they fill it out, and it goes to us. It gets submitted back to our SOC, and our cybersecurity analysts retrieve it. They scrub it manually for the PII. It goes into an enclave, and then from that enclave, it's automatically scrubbed PII. And then from there, it goes to DHS server. And then DHS also scrubs PII. So there's actually 3 levels of scrubbing. We always keep the original just in case. In the enclave, it's completely secure. So more questions to ask if you're shopping around. How do you guys how does it logistically look when I'm sharing information? Walk me through the steps, okay? these are things that we do that I'm sharing with you because these are things you should do as a company. You should have some kind of a risk management program. Yearly, we do the security risk assessment. We follow the NIST 800-30. Does anybody here do that? For compliance, okay, this is mostly related to compliance, but you know that these regulations and mandates that the government puts out are not fun. So some of these things kind of take the heavy lifting off of it. Data security standards, we use that for our PCI because we do accept credit cards, so we have to be payment card industry compliant. We do penetration testing once a year. We do vulnerability scans quarterly. And then HIPAA compliance, because even though we're not in the healthcare industry, we are still a defined business associate with the new HIPAA rules. That means that we are part of transmitting and sending and receiving some HIPAA info, so now we are falling under the HIPAA compliance rules. I'm sharing this website with you because this has really saved us so much time. If any of you here are fallen under HIPAA compliance rules, HIPAA GPS, it's great. It's just so much easier. It streamlines everything, and it takes a lot of the work out. And I don't know them personally. It's not a personal plug. It's just I'm sharing our trials and tribulations with you to hopefully save you guys time if you're part of that. The other thing is we're also part of national organizations. I think I mentioned a couple of them, the FBI, the SBA, and then local, of course, SBA runs the SBDC, which is helpful for here today, the EDC, BBB, things like that. So some other questions you would want to ask when joining an ISAO. So what questions do you guys have for me, if any? Yeah.
So joining an ISAO or sharing your information under CISA provides protections against lawsuits. Mm-hmm. How does that play against like cyber breach insurance and the costs?
Great question.
Where's the line drawn?
So what I tell people is one does not replace the other. They're actually complementary because let's say, God forbid, you do get sued. You're protected against getting sued under CISA. However, you would still need that insurance to represent you in court. So I don't know how much court fees cost, but those are fees to just walk into the court and represent, to say you can't because I'm protected under CISA. Those insurance would cover that. Also, insurance would cover things like forensics. To find out what was lost, to find the bad guy. Deep dive, things like that. A loss of business revenue. CISA protects you from litigation, but insurance will cover the cost of things like business loss. So great question, but they complement each other. They by no means replace.